Oh, hi. So, before we get into the episode proper, there most of my issues and things that I had talked about in the episode obviously got addressed. I was talking about, well, we're still waiting for Immortal updates. We have no idea when the D3 PTR is going to come. Blizzard hasn't acknowledged, any of the demands from the Activision Blizzard King Employee Worker Alliance. It, and we got, and since then we obviously have gotten the Immortal Alpha. We have the D3 PTR, which also looks equally amazing. And, surprisingly, ATVI has actually begun to acknowledge most, not all, but most of the Blizzard employees' demands, which is, props to them. They're one of the first companies of doing it because Riot and Ubisoft, two of the other big names out there that are going through similar issues with their workforce haven't given them the light of day at all. In some cases, longer than what has been going on with the Blizzard drama over the last few months. So, a lot of the things I'm about to talk about in this episode have been invalidated, but sadly, I recorded them prior to all of these updates and such, and I got busy, and obviously I've been playing the Immortal beta, and just the BlizzCon melancholy of not being there, which would have been this weekend and such, has caused some delays in getting this episode edited and all that. But I will leave you to it, and I will see you in hopefully live over at twitch.tv/BlizzPro, as I'll be recording another episode this upcoming Wednesday, which I believe is the 10th? Yes, the 10th. So I will see you all shortly. Good evening, workshoppers. Man, it's been a while. Now, I know I said that there would be some rough scheduling conflicts and such going on, over the next couple of months because of work and what have you, but yeah, I was not quite expecting just how much my schedule would have been overloaded 2 weeks ago when I was supposed to record this episode. And then there just hasn't been an opportunity to go through and record a makeup episode, of course, until now. So, again, my apologies. It's been almost a month, since the last episode. We did have the episode 218 and a half because of the developer update. But this does now bring us into the episode 219, waiting for updates. It's one of those forever interesting periods because we got so much to look forward to, and yet so much that's already going on. But it always feels that no matter what happens, what comes out, it's always just waiting on the next thing. Oh, Diablo 2 Resurrected comes out, but we've got the Diablo 4 dev blog coming out shortly, right? And then after that comes out, well, we're still expecting that Diablo 2 PTR, and what's going on with Diablo Immortal. We'll be covering these topics and more as we go through this episode here. And as you guessed it, we start every episode with talking about the ongoing legal issues facing Blizzard Entertainment and Activision Blizzard. And yeah, there have actually been quite a few things, since the last episode in terms of this. And it's funny because if I had done the episode, 2 weeks ago when I was supposed to have, there was a lot of big updates and changes then, and there have been further developments up until this point. First off, I believe we are at now the 3-year anniversary of the Activision Blizzard King Worker Alliance going through and issuing a small statement of 4 reasonable requests of the company that has still continued to be unanswered by the higher ups. And this is something that we see that is the same process that's happened over at, say, other companies that have been having a lot of these worker relation issues, such as Ubisoft, where they have a workers group that made a small list of demands, and it's removing forced arbitration clauses, having an outside third party representative that's picked by both the employees and the company in order to go through and look into these issues, instead of known union busting firms coming in and looking at things that of course are always going to try and side things for the company itself. In place of that, we do at least have a statement from Activision Blizzard that was made earlier this week about, they held like 40 employees accountable for their actions. Some 20 had various levels of, some sort of like, they got in trouble. Some form of punishment was issued to these employees, while another 20 were just completely separated from the company, completely. And so I guess there's that, and it's funny seeing Fran Townsend, talk about how they're holding all of these employees accountable for their irreprehensible behavior, when just like 3 months ago she was saying that there is no war in Ba Sing Se. None of these things are going through and happening in Activision. All of these claims are without merit, or they're old. Because that somehow invalidates like sexual harassment and and discrimination against your employees. But yeah, continuing on that vein, there is of course, we talked about the EEOC had went through and had filed a lawsuit against Activision Blizzard, which was then because the talks had broken down between the two entities in terms of an ongoing investigation that had been that they had been having against ATVI, and then the day that it happened, they reached an $18 million settlement. And I had mentioned on some previous episodes that I wasn't sure, because it was just some people talking about that part of the agreement that an employee would have to sign in order to receive funds from this lawsuit would be, absolving Activision Blizzard and all entities thereof of any type of accountability from anything else involving workplace harassment, sexual discrimination, gender, race discrimination, or anything along those lines. And about how that might negatively affect the state of California's the DH or the DFEH's lawsuit against Blizzard into these same exact things. They both have a large degree of overlap, and well, it seems that was the case because the state of California filed, an injunction against this settlement, saying that it would irreparably damage the ongoing investigation and legal case that it has against Blizzard Entertainment. If they sign these waivers, it absolves Blizzard of any wrongdoing in relation to their case, and makes it so that way they can't actually pursue any damages or anything like that. And so now this has actually started a legal feud between the federal entity and the state level entity of this ongoing, shit show of legal proceedings, because, the EEOC then went through and filed a lawsuit against, the state of California, saying, there's an ethics violation here, because the two lead attorneys that the state of California has with the ongoing legal case against Blizzard were formerly attorneys at the EEOC that were going through and working on the case that they were building against Blizzard, that came about to that $18 million lawsuit, that then went to work for the state of California, in which filed this other lawsuit against them because of a law in the state of California that makes it that if you were a federal attorney, it is a ethics violation to then work to go from a federal case to a state level case, and that you basically kind of like have to recuse yourself. And then going through and then seeing that lawsuit from EEOC against the state of California, Blizzard filed their own motion in their lawsuit, in their lawsuit with the state of California, saying that, until that's figured out, this whole case should be paused. And actually, the whole case should be thrown out, because if those two attorneys have been the ones that are steering this entire case, well, then everything in the case itself is then at that point moot and can't be used in the court of law. And so it's like one of these whole things that it's like, it looks like there's some sort of like giant like ego contest going on, where the EEOC lost a couple of their high up attorneys to the state of California, and then they have a better case against Blizzard than the feds do. Not to mention that, as we talk about like these ethic violations and all those other types of stuff, Fran Townsend worked at the Justice Department for a good number of years. what is the higher ups, and the head attorneys and things like that at the EEOC? What type of relationship do they have with Fran Townsend? Because it's one of those that it looks like the whole thing with their lawsuit, going and saying, oh, talks broke down, so we're suing Blizzard, and then like 3 hours later, we reached an agreement, and it's like $18 million, which is like, that doesn't even count as a slap on the wrist. That we talked about in previous episodes with the like financial breakdowns. That is nowhere near close to even being a slap on the wrist. You want to talk about ethics, like this is just like, at this point, it's just like the federal agency having a dick measuring contest with the state of California with who can hold Blizzard accountable more. The EEOC wants their win. They want to say they did the good job, despite the fact that it's obviously like a whole bunch of bullshit. And then the state of California is actually wanting to go through and hold Activision and Blizzard, specifically Blizzard Entertainment, accountable for all of these alleged actions. And, they're now having to fight the other agency that should also be going after Blizzard. Like, they should be teaming up together, not fighting over, who's the one that gets to sue the company. I don't know. It's just like, it's so messed up. It's just like an ongoing shit show, and there's no other way to describe it. But the judge presiding in the case between the state of California and Blizzard Entertainment threw out Blizzard's motion for pausing the case. There was no reason given. He just threw it out. But we still have to wait and see how this whole thing plans out, because when it comes down to it, the word of law is that I do believe that the EEOC is going to win their case against California, and that those two attorneys that are in charge of this investigation are going to have to recuse themselves. That doesn't mean that the case itself is going to stop, but it is a yet another hurdle that the state of California is going to have in order to go and prove all of these allegations against Blizzard and holding them responsible, for these things that are going through and happening. So it's fucked, man. Forgive my language, but god damn, is it just screwy, to say the least. But of course, as I've said before, any type of information or updates that come from this ongoing legal proceedings, I will open every single episode with it, because I believe in a better Blizzard. I want Blizzard Entertainment to be a better company for its employees, and that means that they will make better games for us, the consumers. But actually, going on to more Diablo-centric information and, some other positives and negatives that have been going on within the Diablo community. I say this every single episode, but PTR win. We again have no inkling of when the Diablo 3 PTR is going to go through and pop up, though every day that it doesn't come is another day that we're closer to it. It should be somewhere soon. I understand that we're now kind of going into 4-month seasons instead of 3-month seasons, but even then, with the timing and all of that, if we don't see something within the next week or two, is going to be really pushing it, because they're not going to launch a patch, on Thanksgiving, or at least I hope not. Blizzard has done it before. I mean, they've released Shadowlands, that same week, and it's something that creates just a lot of pressure around playing the game and family and other things like that. So I would hope and like that they don't do that. So if we don't see a PTR, say next week, it probably is going to be another week or two, because I would be perfectly okay with them not starting the next season until the first or second week in December. I know it's gonna be an extremely long season, and nobody likes that, but people are having fun still with the ethereals. I'm about halfway on my ethereal hunt of going through and finishing that, so a little bit extra time I'm 100% okay with, because I have been playing a little bit more Diablo 3 these past couple of weeks than Diablo 2, and I'll get into some of that in a little bit. But yeah, it will be interested in seeing what they're going to go and follow up with, because the Ethereals is one of, the funnest seasons that they've done in quite some time. I want to say, ever since like either the Legacy of Nightmares or the Ring of Royal Grandeur seasons, where just little changes like that can have some huge, big benefits. And I can't wait and see what they come out with next, especially given like the extended season, the expanded staff, and what else that they've got and have been able to come up with. In terms of Diablo Immortal, we don't really have anything official. There's been no news on that side. Though I have been seeing some chatter on like Reddit and on Twitter that apparently there have been some like updates in the previous like alpha client, that if you still had that on your phone from the closed alpha earlier in the year, that there have been like some of the messages have changed or something. So there's obviously some sort of thing that's going on in the background with Immortal, yet we still have no idea when that's going to happen. We do know, at least as I've talked about on previous episodes, that they pushed back the game until like I believe it was like early 2022. It's like either first quarter or first half of 2022, namely because they want to implement a lot of changes that they found during the last closed alpha in their commitment to controller support, except that, of course, that adding in that controller support is a huge commitment that's having to go through and add it to the game. Whatever on the back end that has to be changed in order to add that type of support in is significant enough that it's caused them to delay the game, where they were like hard set on launching this year. So we might see something more from Immortal in the coming months, though it might not be, because remember the first technical alpha was like the week after Christmas, so we might not see anything until like that time period, when we get to like the December January area, but we'll wait and see. And obviously since the last episode, there has been a lot of chatter and a lot of stuff going on with Diablo 2 Resurrected. There was of course some server issues at launch, but unlike what happens in a lot of games, those server issues actually got worse as time went on. The game stability was at an all-time low. There's tons of crashes, miscellaneous errors, characters getting deleted, characters and overall progression getting rolled back. Tons of issues and problems. But Blizzard, went through and actually, in kind of like the interest of openness, had a big thread on their forums going through and discussing a lot of the problems that they were having, and the issues that they were facing, and some of the things that they were going to try and implement in order to mitigate these issues, as well as what they're going to be doing in order to try and prevent them wholesale going forward. And a lot of it comes down to just ancient code, ancient tech, and things that were just never designed in order to handle anywhere near the number of players that are playing it right now. In the structure of having just one centralized global database for all characters in the entire world, that is fed information from a whole bunch of regional databases, and that same mechanic also like queuing and pulling information from other aspects of the game that was kind of like a one catch-all source of code that was just expanded to its limits and then taken beyond that and broke. And it just created issues with how the game itself plays as a whole. And some of the things that they've implemented, at least temporarily, in order to go through and get by these issues is, bringing in, a hard limit to how often that you can exit and create games. That, like, say if you fail to join a game or if you close out a game, there's like a minute period before you can create another one. There's just an overall limit on how many games that you can create, like say per hour, like how it used to be on Battle.net. And then one of the biggest, and has become a point of contention, is queues. And in order to try and handle, this thing with how the databases write to one another, also kind of like responsible for like they got really techie in this explanation, and it is well above my head or my level of understanding. But it seems that also like just the aspect of like logging in your characters and such affects the way that these databases like write and talk to one another. And so they had to implement a queue, so slow the entrance of people, into the servers, as well as that generally means that there's also some sort of server or player cap that is implemented. And some people were going through and complaining, oh, why is Blizzard, why is there a queue like at 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, but there's not one at night? And well, as we've seen I think it was Thunderclaw on Reddit went through and posted some information showing that like Diablo 2 is like the second most popular game in like Korea. That a lot of the culture around gaming over there is the PC bongs, kind of like the LAN centers, as opposed to like playing the game like at home. And it Diablo 2 Resurrected actually increased in popularity from its launch to like the point where it is now. And so like during some of their prime time gaming hours, which also kind of like lines up with starting to get into early afternoon with a lot of Europe, where the game itself is also extremely popular, makes for the mornings in NA to be pretty crowded and have some queues, whereas we start to get into like the American prime time, don't have quite as bad queues, although it still can go through and hit there as well. And this has also caused like a whole bunch of issues, like implementing those queues. There's a delay in how that they do patches on console, where they can push a patch on Battle.net instantly, but it has to go through an application process at Microsoft and Sony before they can go through and implement it. But the change was already made on the back end, and so you had people that were trying to log in on console, and that they had this queue system, but no way of actually communicating that information to the player, and so they're just constantly getting these massive disconnect, warnings and issues and such. And you just have to sit there and then just mash trying to reconnect, and it can take hours because of just how broken it is. And while that has since been finished, it is some of those like considerations that you have to take into account, that when a game is cross-platform on both PC and console, that a lot of other games they just break off. They might have cross-play between consoles, but they might not necessarily have cross-play between consoles and PC. But there are a lot that do, but yeah, you actually have to plan out that when you're in charge of your own platform, you can patch whenever you want to. But if it's something that requires a player-side update, that you might be a week or two out before those things can hit console, and so you have to be careful. It was one of those ones where it's like it sucks, but the game was jank and had extreme playability problems already, but it created an extremely negative impact without a lot of explanation or anything on the console side. And it's something that with the current implementation, it's not perfect, but it at least is making the game playable. The servers are far more stable. You don't have anywhere near the level of reports of character rollbacks or anything along those lines. It still pops up like occasionally, but that's just it probably it's something that we all experienced playing on Battle.net back in the day, and so hopefully it's occurring at no more than rate than that. But Blizzard isn't stopping there. It's not like they're just going through and putting in the queue and saying that's it, we're done. They are trying to break out some of that kind of like legacy code, where it's this giant one single program that runs in the background that's handling many different aspects of the game, and trying to pull out some of those aspects and kind of like divide the beast up, so that way they can try and eliminate some of these bottlenecks. So that way the idea would be there's not going to be a queue in order to log into the game. There's not going to be there's not going to be a limit to how often you can join the game, because like right now the game doesn't care if you typed in the password wrong and failed to connect to the game. You have to wait a minute before you can connect to anything else. And that's how strict the system is right now. But eventually they are going to ease back on those limitations as they go and give updates. And this all kind of plays into why there was no ladder at launch. And so we can be thankful at least that we've got those ladder only items and key rune words and such that we can all go through and play with at the moment. But it will be interested in seeing when or if they feel that the game is ready for actual ladder content, because once that hits, there's a lot of people that were just kind of like going through and playing and putzing around, but they're waiting for the ladder. They're waiting for that kind of like a little bit more of that competitive edge in order to get in there and see what happens. Who's going to be like the first 99 and such. And then also, while on the topic of Diablo 2 Resurrected and ladders, the past couple of weeks there has been a little interview, like a Japanese interview that's going around that was starting the rumor that was claiming that the lead developer on Diablo 2 Resurrected was saying that ladders would include new rune words and new powerful monsters. And where there's a bunch of translations, and big props to Riker on like really digging deep into investigating this. Everyone was going through and saying that the things that they're saying in this interview are pretty clear cut. They're saying that in relation to ladders, there's going to be new rune words and there's going to be new monsters. To the point that Riker was like, well, this is not something that's ever been discussed, that they're going to have ladder themed ladders or seasons or anything along those lines to mirror what Diablo 3 or Path of Exile do. And so Riker actually went and reached out to Blizzard Entertainment for a direct comment from them, and breaking a lot of what Blizzard's standard MO is, just not say anything. We won't discuss rumors or anything. But I guess it's because it actually was involved with one of the lead developers that they did decide to clarify that this one was probably something that was just lost in translation, and that the dev actually meant to go and say that they had implemented the rune words and the Ubers on non-ladder to make up for the future ladder content being delayed and not having the ladder at launch, and that was a little bit of a mistake. Just what happens when you have one side communicating in one language and then going through translators in order to go and get to the other side and such. And that thing is understandable. It happens, right? But also, I guess what is it? Just today, I believe it was announced that Vicarious Visions is going to be dropping their name. Just to go through and say, like, it isn't just like oh yeah, Blizzard owns Vicarious Visions, and they're still Vicarious Visions, and they're going to be operating, doing whatever it is that they want. But now it's going to be, I believe the article I read on Wowhead was saying that the name that's being thrown around is potentially being called Blizzard Albany. It'd be cool to have, like, I don't know, Blizzard East, kind of like theming with studios of the past. But it is Vicarious Visions is now Blizzard. They're not going to be working on any other Activision titles or anything like that. It's all just they are Blizzard. And as we know, they're already hiring developers for Diablo 4. And so it'll be interesting to see what comes of that kind of code development structure. I've pondered on this one quite a bit with what the potential that has when it comes to future updates for Diablo 4, since it's supposed to be an open world, kind of like living, breathing game, and what we might see in the future. And speaking of Diablo 4, well, we just had that developers blog a couple weeks ago. We don't really expect to see anything else, until probably December, for the quarter 4 to wrap up the year in terms of updates for D4. Though, there have been some slightly sad news in the fact that Blizzard has announced this week that they are canceling BlizzConline. And so, we did not have a BlizzCon this year, and if you've been following me on Twitter, I've been tweeting out some of my memories of the last BlizzCon back in 2019, because that was one that was, one of the most memorable for me, not just being, the announcement of Diablo 4, but just, like, hanging out with friends and other stuff like that. So if you want some of my memories of past BlizzCons, feel free to check my Twitter. I'll be updating it every day through, like, the majority of that trip that I went through. But with no BlizzCon this year, the Blizzard had stated they'd be doing a BlizzConline follow-up, early 2022, just as we had this earlier this year. But they've now said that just the moment isn't right with the ongoing issues that they have internally, and as they continue to work out stuff, that the level of commitment across all the teams and every member at Blizzard is a very high bar to meet in order to put on something even online and in a reduced fashion that BlizzConline is. And so it's just not the right time, as we talked about in the beginning of the episode with the ongoing legal troubles that have been plaguing the company. It just makes sense. You've got all of these employees that are just going through, doing their best. Many employees that are going through, and leaving the company, they just can't, deal with it, or they don't want to be continually confronted, with these, ghosts and past transgressions that have been enacted upon them. That they, just looking for, something else out in the industry, or leaving the industry altogether. And then, you have other things like, say, some very active stuff like over on Overwatch. Jesse McCree, who is one of the people that was separated from the company, that was, expected to have been something on these ongoing allegations. His character was renamed in Overwatch to Cole Cassidy. And as well as an ongoing list of changes in World of Warcraft. And while there is a vocal group out there in the community that are saying, like, this doesn't make up for everything that's been alleged against Blizzard, and it doesn't, but the development teams themselves don't really have any say or input in how the company responds or enacts to these allegations, or enforcing policy changes and such. But these individual artists, developers, community members and such, what they can do is implement changes within their own game that they do have control of over that sphere. And a lot of the changes that have been happening in World of Warcraft, when you dig down into the conversations that are being had, these are changes that the WoW developers want for themselves. These are things that they're not renaming characters, they're not changing portraits of women into fruit bowls for the community at large, but it's changes that the developers themselves are wanting to go through and see. And these are for reasons that we really have no idea. Are these are these art assets that were created by former predators? Were these lines of dialogue that were approved by complete and total assholes and such? Were there internal jokes made about employees that these references got made into the game and such? These are things we have no idea, but the staff does. And so that's why most of these changes that you see going on, in World of Warcraft, they're not for us, the players. They're for the developers themselves. So it's not meant to take the place of actually holding people accountable, or going through and enabling change in order to address some of these systemic issues that have as we now know, been plaguing Blizzard for years and years. But they're meant as some form of making it as a form of catharsis for some of the developers themselves to make these changes. And who's to have anything negative to say about that, really? So we've had some updates. We're still looking forward to some updates in terms of Diablo. I definitely look forward to going through and recording where we might be at with the next episode. What type of updates are we going to have for Diablo 2? Are we going to have maybe a better path towards ladder from the developers there? Are we going to have any updates on how some of these major system changes, these back-end system changes are going? Will we have some sort of timeline? Is this something, can we expect ladders this year? Is it going to be something that's going to be coming next year? And then also the other big one on my radar, of course, is I hope by the time that we have the next episode that we're going to have the new PTR for Diablo 3. But that's definitely a wait and see on that one. With that will bring me to the end of this episode. I do hope that you had a good, fun time going and listening, despite all of the negatives that have been going on within the Blizzard community and the Diablo community. It is still a good time to be a Diablo fan. Between all of the updates that the franchise has been receiving, as well as the future stuff that we have coming. Maybe there might be some hope that Diablo 2 Resurrected will get some future updates, and not just beyond going through and redoing season, but will actually have something that pushes the envelope a little bit further than what the game is. Because I'm not sure I'm not sure about you, but I had a lot of fun. There was some issues, of course, with server stability and lag and joining friends' games and such, but I had a lot of fun going through and playing the game. But it's something that was just like I had issues like going and getting through hell. That there's part of me that's just like I want to do it just to say I did it, but it's like maybe I should just play a class I have not done in a while or I've never done before, like an Amazon. Just because it's like it's the same game that I remember, and while it's a lot of fun and it easily took like 30ish, I got like a great like 30ish hours out of it. It's the same game that I remember, and as you go through and continue to play on, it's just like some of the issues of just like one of those old games that it's like, oh, okay, I got to hell. Now let me go back to Nightmare and then just farm for a couple of days in order to get some extra levels and some extra gear before I can progress, through hell. And it's just going and repeating, how many like Pendle runs or Bloody runs, Andy runs, and stuff like that can you go through and do just to go and progress up. And it's just, I've done Ubers, I've done all of that stuff. I don't really have any goals to achieve in Diablo 2 Resurrected. And so it's just, I guess I'm waiting for something a bit new, a bit different. I'm definitely going to be there when ladders go through and come out, but I guess I feel at the moment, I guess it's just a lack of direction, a lack of having a goal in mind in order to keep the game going, and something that obviously is a bit easier with, Diablo 3 and like the seasonal journey and the new like content that gets thrown in there. But I guess I was just maybe expecting something a bit newer. With D2R, it's something about the the endless loot grind just isn't as appealing. But then I'm also being pulled in a whole bunch of directions. I've got a competitive mindset with Age of Sigmar, going through and trying to build up the local like Warhammer League that I'm now like a TO in. And just a lot of other things that are pulling me in a bunch of different directions. And so when I sit down and play a game, I need to try and prioritize my time, and I want specific goals in mind, because otherwise the same time that I'm spent doing this, I can be doing something for another hobby or something, and so it's just, I don't know, weird place to be in. Very weird place to be in. I'm sure all of the work related stress hasn't been helping out in that aspect either, but I'm still here, still a happy member of the Diablo community. I'm still going to be creating content. I might be missing, some episodes with just like going through and looking at, my work schedule for the coming months. Might still be missing some episodes, so just expect that. And just like last year, I might take a break in like December when things, get like really out of control and all other such. But we'll see. We'll talk about that stuff later. But again, thank you all for going through, joining, and listening to the episode here. Whether you're going through and listening on iTunes, Stitcher, whether you're watching the show on a VOD or on YouTube, feel free to go through, leave comments, send me emails. I love, questions, comments, feedback, or even just news tips and such that I got in regards to like some of the legal battles and such that have been going on. Feel free to drop them over at Westmarch Workshop at blizzpro.com, or you can follow the show on Twitter over at the WM Workshop. You can follow my personal account, 9ballgamer, on Twitter, for updates and such. And then, of course, I record the show live here every other Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. With that, I wish you all a good evening, and I will catch you all next time.